men are very delicate when it comes to emotions. They're more delicate than women. We're not emotionally led in the way that women are. So when we do give our emotions, it is a big goddamn deal.
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to Gabz TV. It's going off, innit?
Trust me, it's going off low, so everybody want to know what's going on.
That last video really got questions for it already. I don't want to free us, you know.
Hey,
Got man working overtime.
yeah, I've took your advice. So I stopped responding to comments like that. People that I know, I respond to. People I don't know, I just be leaving it.
Just, you know what? I just say respond to the interesting ones. The one that you think, yeah. This could advance what I'm trying to talk. Because sometimes, obviously, I'm putting up the short of a video.
Yeah.
And if they're not like willing enough to watch the full thing, at least respond to the comments that aid to what you're trying to say. Well, yeah, nah. I think obviously we were talking after.
And stop messaging me about how you can boost my followers. Stop trying to do it in, some of you come straightforward. Some of you come, I like your stuff. I can whatever. I'm not interested in how to boost my followers. I ain't gonna pay for you to give me a blue tick. I'm not gonna pay for you to give me 10,000 followers. If people want to follow, it means we're doing something right. If you don't want to follow, then don't worry about it. I'm not interested. Stop messaging me, please. I beg.
What have they got? I've had.
My God, bro. I'm every other day someone's messaging me. Yeah, well, production. We can do this. Before you know it, now you're telling me the fee is £70 and I can whatever. Like I'm not interested, bruv. Like, if this thing is gonna happen and it becomes 1 million followers, let it come naturally. If it's however way it comes, let it come naturally. We're being genuine here. You asked me to start buying followers now. You're asking me to invest too much into making people believe something that in actual fact is not true. And we didn't start this to be Decepticons. I'm not. If we're gonna start deceiving, let's turn the camera and go to our lives that we've been normally doing. What's like? What you leave me alone, bruv?
Please leave Gabz alone.
Leave me alone.
We're not buying any followers.
I'm not buying it. I know. Stop asking me about random things. I'm not giving you my account details.
When you get hacked, and then there'll be some forex. Did you ever get hit by anyone that got hacked and they'll ask you to send them money or some shit?
Yeah. One of my brethren, they used the guy. I had to call his sister.
Wow.
Shout out to, I had to call her like, it's or something. He's asking me for credit or something. He's in jail. She's like, no, he's not. I just spoke to him yesterday. What jail is he in? I said, oh yeah, like that. I said, and if not because of my philosophy on like money and things like that, my standpoint with money, I would have just been sending some random person credit.
Wow.
I must say, Gabz, what are you talking about? I ain't in jail. I said, are you not? So who am I speaking to? Fam, that's not me. So at that point there, I said, you know what? Anyone that messaged me that, if it's something random, I know there's a problem. I'm not interested. I had a few people, random messages. Gabz, can you help me? Oh, I'm going through something. £200 is all I need. Huh? £200 is all I need. In fact, you said 200 is all you need. Not even 10, 20. You said 200.
It's always the big ones.
What's going on there? Someone that I haven't spoken to or have no business with, maybe since even primary school.
Wow.
You've definitely been hacked.
Yeah.
Or you've lost your mind. With me, you come to us, you have a mum, you have dad, you have siblings. It's me, you come to us. Kilo day. What's going on there?
Gabz.
My name is Gabriel.
Alright, cool. Let's start getting onto the topic of today. Obviously from that video, and it's actually circulating now in regards to how your mumsy raised you in result of relationships and so on. And one thought it brought up to me was vulnerability.
Yeah.
And I heard you talking about vulnerability on the phone, and I was like, what is it about being vulnerable now that you want that you wasn't accepting of when you were younger?
Well, it goes back to that thing when we was talking about love and how beautifully dangerous it is. If you allow yourself to be vulnerable, it opens up it opens you up in a way that allows people to see how warm you are. Like if you take, for example, Gabz TV, you know I can't do this without you. And well, you can't do Gabz TV without me. Me being with you in that space where it's like you recognize that your value is so high to me that I depend on you in such a way, encourages you to want to help me even more, to help us even more. Because I'm showing you a vulnerable side to me. If I came to you and I was a bit like, well, yeah, duh, and I can just do this, oh yeah, and I don't need you, are you gonna be like, are you gonna want to help me even more? To be vulnerable doesn't mean that you're weak. It just means that you allow someone in. And to depend on someone is a wonderful feeling. It means you don't have to do it on your own. You turn around now, you say, and you could move dark and say, nah, I ain't doing this with you no more. All right, whatever. And it would be sad. But at least I had the pleasure of feeling like in that time that we was doing this together, that you had my back. And that you was just as invested in building me as much as I'm invested in building you. Do you get what I'm saying? And hopefully well, I believe it will be forever. For however long we do what we need to do. And if it's not on this capacity, it'll be in different capacity. But if we're talking about like relationship wise, I would love to have that feeling. I don't want to be tough all the time. I'm tough, don't get me wrong. I'm a strong you. I'm mentally tough. But even the mental toughness can be exhausting, bro. You think I don't want to go home and lay on breast? Like what? You think I don't want to have moments where I hug for extra bit long because the world is just a bit too much for me, and I'm gonna wake up and get it going and do what I need to do, but don't think that I'm doing it because I enjoy it. I'm doing it because I have to, but to give me that extra push, sometimes that hug, that feeling is needed. And when that person knows that he's safe in that vulnerable space with you, the effort that goes into what he's doing is 10 times more. You then feel obligated. You feel like it's a joy to carry on pushing. When you don't have nothing to push for, you just have desires to make money or whatever else. After a while, it's like, okay, you've made the money. Okay, now you've done this. When I think about some of the things I feel and I hug my son, I think, wow, he depends on me. I depend on him. He doesn't even know I depend on him.
Or is that like a form of emotional regulation?
It's more like a if I can lose motivation sometimes, you know how this thing goes. Make a bit of dough and whatever else, and you just think, oh. Or work sometimes you just think, oh. But then sometimes you need that thing where when you wake up and you look at your kids. Yeah. Just that morning that I felt like I didn't want to do it anymore. I want to do it again. Because we need those things. And what they provide for you is a vulnerable space to be in. I might be super dad, whatever else, but recognize that I'm still like a human, like I'm still soft. I still have feelings, I still have emotions, like, and you want to know that you're in a safe space within that environment to feel that way. So often what you do as a dad is you try to create a space where as much as you want your kid to be tough, you also want your kid to be able to cry. Because you recognize the importance of expressing yourself and you recognize the importance of being vulnerable. When you're in survival mode, there's no room for vulnerability. In fact, vulnerability is looked at as a weakness because you're in survival mode. But the truth is that survival mode is just a way of you getting to that place where you can actually, at the end of it, sit there and say, thank God I'm out of this. Because all throughout that survival mode, you are praying to God on that vulnerable one, help me. I'm weak. Do you get what I'm saying? And sometimes you want to share that with someone. So when you ask someone, say, oh, you do this on your own, you do it on your own. I don't want to do all of this on my own. But if I had to, Los, what do you want me to do? But if I had a choice, why would you want to do this? Why would I do Gabz TV on my own?
Or even life in general.
Why would I do life in general on my own? But I get it. If you have to, you have to. What can you do? But if I had a choice on my own, I used to think that doing on your own was more safer. But the truth is that one way or another, you're relying on people. You never actually do it on your own. As you go on your journey, you link up with that person. You link up with that person. You link up with that person. You didn't just make all the money, find all the wisdom, get all the knowledge on yourself. You had to be vulnerable with your teachers in school. You're going to tell me that you woke up just knowing Pythagoras theorem? Or did you get to a place where you had to explain to your teacher that, look, I don't understand this? And trusting that, as you told the teacher you don't understand, trusting that that teacher is going to safeguard that vulnerability and help you without embarrassing you. Now you turn on and say, oh, I did it on my own. No, you didn't. That teacher supported you. In the moments where you didn't understand and you couldn't comprehend and you couldn't process, what did that teacher do? He or she took time with you. Practiced with you. And that only comes from the fact that you was vulnerable to that teacher. Now, if you went to that teacher and acted like you know it all, you think that teacher is going to be receptive? It's going to want to help you in that way. You think that teacher can see how vulnerable you are? Some of them can, but you be fighting it because you think that you can do it on your own. The truth is, no one does it on their own. You just think you do it on your own. The more vulnerable I've been with people, the more they've wanted to help me. Now, ideally, you want to have someone specific that you are vulnerable with. And I want to be that kind of person with someone. What the hell do you think this is? The world can think what the world thinks, but at least there's one person that can affect my mood and at the same time safeguard my emotions. I think that's a beautiful thing. That's when you're locked in different. You know what I mean? Who doesn't want to go through life feeling like that? I don't know, my vulnerability is nice. It's a good feeling, especially when it's safeguarded, when it's protected. It's like, I'm allowed to just be me.
I think taken from your answer to that question was like there's a side of you that this person will see of you. Now that allows me to lead on to my next question of do you think the world would be a better place if men were more vulnerable? Well, yeah, like there's a benchmark for being vulnerable in the sense of just naturally being tough.
Men are vulnerable.
Do you think all men are vulnerable? Or do you think... Because when I do think about like stuff that's happened in the world and like, when you hear cases and stuff like that, I think like, the whole idea of embarrassment, you said things about embarrassment and like if men weren't afraid to be embarrassed in a certain situation, you might have not felt that way. Do you get what I mean? So when you say men are vulnerable, they might be vulnerable with certain things, but let's say you talk about something that's triggering, all of a sudden you realize they're not as vulnerable.
But that trigger is more associated with being insecure, not vulnerable.
So but the vulnerable and insecurities are close in the sense.
Yeah, I mean you can say that they're side by side, but when you're looking at that, that's more an insecurity. When I'm talking vulnerability, I can cry to you today and tell you I can't do this. Wake up tomorrow and then do it. What I needed at that time was to just be vulnerable. I needed to release myself. So you see, sometimes, like I take myself for example, when I pray, I think that's when I'm at my most vulnerable stage. Because at that point there, it's me, my sultana, and my Bible, and my power cloth. And sometimes I cry, sometimes I shake, And by the time I finished getting that out of my system, being that vulnerable space, it was enough for me to now go and attack the world again and do what I need to do. You know what I'm saying? So to be vulnerable is needed to a degree. To tell yourself that you're not vulnerable would be a lie. That means you're fighting your feelings. Sometimes it gets too much. Sometimes we just want to talk to someone and release. Doesn't mean you're going to solve the problem, but I want to release my frustration. And sometimes that comes in the form of crying. Sometimes that comes in the form of, you know? So, you know what I mean?
So do you feel there's a cost to being vulnerable? Because
Of course, yeah.
yeah, like you see how you mentioned about your son
Yeah.
being vulnerable with you. Now, depending on how you and the mum react to him,
Yeah.
will depend how vulnerable he is later on in life. Do you see what I mean? Especially with you lot.
Yeah.
So, what do you believe are the costs to being vulnerable?
I think
What's the risk?
I think when you're too vulnerable, you open yourself up for different kind of problems that you have in the world, and one of the problems being that people will abuse that vulnerability.
Mm.
So I don't think, let's just say in the boardroom with Alan Sugar, what's that program? Apprentice. I don't think personally I would be vulnerable with any one of the cast members in Apprentice. Or is it cast members? The people, the group, the people. Because they're the candidates, sorry. Because I wouldn't be surprised my vulnerability in that situation. Now you come and hot me up in front of Alan Sugar. Well, that day you said that you couldn't handle it, and I had to help you through that. So I just think he's a weak candidate. Whoa! I spoke to you and we was having a moment. That didn't mean I couldn't but now you've abused my vulnerability. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, you gotta be very careful with who you're vulnerable with.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Being too vulnerable will have people abuse that. And that's not because the world is bad. That's because the world is competitive.
And then
However way you want to look at it, society is what it is. It's like, yeah, we're all together, but at the same time, I want to win, you want to win. If I can do certain things to throw you off your game, boom. If we're playing basketball, you and I, and we're talking, and I feel like you're winning this game, and you've been vulnerable with me about, let's say, your dad passing, RIP Pops, and I can say one or two things to throw you off your game. You think they don't do that in the game? It's not personal all the time. Someone wants to win. You're scoring too many points. Now you're distracted mentally.
So do you think that's like similar to being in a relationship where men don't get vulnerable?
Yeah, because you're afraid, innit? You're afraid that, not even that, because the corporate world, let's just say, or the business or the society in itself, that's a different kind of fear. The one that you fear the most is the person that you're with, because they know you. And ultimately, they can break you. They can break you completely, especially when you are legit vulnerable with that person. They know you in and out. You've opened up. But at the same time, as you've opened up, the part that we always look past is how beautiful it is. It is dangerous, don't get me wrong. But mate, as much as she can break you, it's the same way she can take you to another level. It's the same way she's got your back full on. That's what I'm saying. When you say you're locked in, she knows in that situation, yeah, you wasn't this, you wasn't that, you can't quickly respond. She'll step in quickly. Yeah, well, he wasn't asking in the first place. She didn't do that because she just whatever. She did it because she locked in with you. She knew when to step in. Same way you're locked in with her. Oh, well, I don't know how. I can't. And yeah, whatever. Excuse me. Talk to me. That's my woman. And what's the problem now? What do you need? But then if you don't protect that vulnerability, it just becomes negative. If you abuse that vulnerability, we can't see the beauty in the thing no more. I'm serious. It's dangerous. You know what I'm saying? Like, being in a position where I can step in for you allows you to feel safe. Being in a position where you can step in for me allows me to feel safe. Yours might be physical, mine might be emotional. And it stops me from going to go and express to strangers who might use my vulnerability against me. Because you might not be Team Gabz. You might be Team whatever. Pretending to be Team Gabz. You know what I'm saying? So, to be vulnerable is a wonderful feeling. And I don't think you can unlock the true beauty of love until you understand the importance of being vulnerable.
That's an interesting perspective, bro.
Yeah, I don't think you can. It's a tricky one. But at the same time, I understand the fear for men. If I'm vulnerable with you and you abuse that vulnerability,
Nah, you know what it is as well. I think sometimes as well.
It goes back to that broke stuff, doesn't it?
Even
When the man is broke and the man is vulnerable with you and says he's broke, rather than take time, you now mug me off for it. You go and tell your friends about it. In public, you will shame me for it. And if you don't, you know what? That's the outside embarrassment. The inside embarrassment is how you then move towards me. Like I ain't shit. Why? Because I couldn't do this anymore. Just because I'm having a bad patch doesn't mean it's always going to be like this, but look at how you're moving. Now you expect that man to want to be vulnerable again? Don't play with us because them again, men are very delicate when it comes to emotions. They're more delicate than women. We're not emotionally led in the way that women are. So when we do give our emotions, it is a big goddamn deal.
don't take it for granted, innit?
Don't take it for granted, blood. I'm serious, don't. It is a big deal. And we'll firm it for as long as we can, but after a while, we turn into monsters. And that monster you won't like when it comes to men. You know, our emotions, we're not good at it the way women are. We're not as resilient.
No, you could definitely tell. But the reason why I was earlier talking about vulnerability, I think also that's what's created this culture of like stunting and fronting, because guys don't want to tell the truth. So it's like, instead of guys are being real with how they feel about a situation, they just harbor it, or they don't deal with the situation. And that's why sometimes that's why I was alluding earlier with the question of, will men being vulnerable make the world a better place? Because then, at least then, we could be more honest with ourselves. But if we're hiding behind stuff and we're not being vulnerable with how we feel, we will just keep up a lie. You know what I mean?
I get how you're using vulnerable in what you're asking. But the money issue is an insecurity, not a vulnerability.
No, I'm not even saying money, because forget about money. I'm just talking about how you are as a person. You know, the issue of being yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, essentially, you being vulnerable with a woman will be more of it'll be a version of a Gabz that nobody else gets to see.
Yeah, of course.
And like I said, where we're doing this show, you're starting to realize people are like looking at you different, like, rah, I didn't know you read books. I didn't know. But and it might not have been a vulnerability, but people just didn't associate education. These times you've been working the whole time. Yeah. So that's why I say that. You know what I mean? Like, showing a better version. I feel like a side of you that you get to show to the world that has vulnerability with it would be better for the world than a side that just straight hard body. Do you get what I mean?
But that's always going to be based on interpretation. Because someone will turn around and say, yeah, he's hard body, he's this, he's that. But another person will turn around and say, there's a lot more to Gabz than that. Yeah. You just can't see it. Yeah. And to expect everyone to see it would be Come on, that's ridiculous. You know, because people often see what they want to see.
Yeah, but then it's the appeal, innit? You know what I mean? As a role model, as you get older. Because now what would happen is, you know, when they say gangsters cry,
Yeah.
but to most people, be like, how? Do you get what I mean? The reason why we'll say how is because you're a bad man 24/7 in our eyes. But in reality, if we were shown that, oh, that guy that, yeah, he shot, he has a heart, you know. He just does this to survive. And he does this because this is how he only knows how to survive at this point of his life. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Then maybe people will say, oh, you know what? I have some compassion for him. Let me help him out. Do you get what I mean? And say, yeah, do you get what I mean? So that's why I kind of see it in that way where you know how it is in ends. Like we have a lot of people that are talented, but it's the path they chose that's completely wrong. Do you see what I mean? But we assumed he was all right with that life because of him just being tough all the time. You get it?
But then you'd have to be a saint in that kind of environment to be able to see that the person's not all right. You'd have to be a saint. One, you know what? In the group, you always have that holy person who's not involved in nothing.
Yeah.
He just wants to know your well-being. Often you don't get that in ends. I'm sorry, you know. So you're not gonna see it because if I'm being honest with you, on block, all that vulnerability just leads to you getting jacked. It leads to you getting moved to. You have to be on the ball. There's no room for weakness. That's why most of the guys that are on block, when they have their girlfriends away from the ends, you see them with flowers and shit. You be like, motherfucker holding flowers?
You do like that still.
You know? Oh, them girls, they'll turn on and say, you don't know him the way I know him. I'm like, oh yeah?
Are
What
you
do you know?
and you be warning the girl like, oh, you shouldn't talk to my man like that, you know?
You don't know him the way I know him.
Okay. He likes the way I speak
He
to
likes to speak to him, you know? Because showing that kind of vulnerability or even being able to identify that on block, I'm sorry, man. You're asking too much. Not when it's survival of the fittest. If the Alan Sugar's boardroom is dangerous, block is dangerous times 1,000. That vulnerability might lead you to getting napped. You know? KO. So it's a different kind of, but then again, like I said, when you have that girlfriend, they can see that thing, and that's the part where, you know, you can make it work in that sense where you have your life with her and then you have your life here. But to say that you're gonna bring elements of that life from over there to here would mean that you no longer live in the survival. You're out of the survival, so you can see things a bit more clearly. But when you're in the survival, bro, you have to be switched on. There's no room for vulnerability. So for the world to be more vulnerable, I'm not gonna lie, on all fronts, that would be very dangerous. I'm saying that people are vulnerable generally, even when they don't know they're vulnerable. They've had an element of vulnerability. But as you get a bit older, you need to. It would be nice to have that one person that you can be vulnerable with. Do you know what I'm saying? Because so you can be like this, and as well as be what you need to be when you step out of this. Do you get what I'm saying? So, but yeah, it's a tough one.
How do you think being vulnerable has helped you as a dad?
How do I think being vulnerable has helped me as a dad? How do I think being vulnerable has helped me as a dad? Helped me as a dad. Patient. When I think about my childhood, I don't have like bad feelings towards it when I think about it. But what I do believe is that if that didn't happen, if things didn't happen the way they did happen, I wouldn't be who I am today. But what I had to understand is that although I wasn't allowed to be vulnerable like that culturally based on how things were, it helped massively with my trusting of people genuinely. Because if I was, and them times there, if I wasn't able to be vulnerable with, let's say, my mum or dad or brothers, I was always able to be vulnerable with people in school, i.e. Miss Fleming, Mr. Steele, Mr. Whitehouse, certain teachers that, and that allowed me to trust people. Do you get what I'm saying? So when I look at my son, and I think about my son, I think for me, recognizing that he is not me is what allows me to support him in the best way possible. But don't get it twisted. Elements of me still apply because sometimes he might be just too vulnerable, in which case I'm just like, nah, you need to toughen up. Do you get what I'm saying? Because as much as in your world, the world is nice, the world I'm looking at is not as nice. So having the right balance of vulnerability is what has helped me personally deal with him. Do you know what I'm saying? And his mum doesn't always like it, which is understandable. But then at the same time, I think she also understands that it's not coming from a bad place when I move to him in a certain kind of way. It's coming from a place of, yeah, I don't mind you crying to me. But if they see you crying too many times, they're going to see that as a sign of weakness. And I wish I could change their perception and let them know that you're not actually weak, you're just being vulnerable, but they don't not see it that way. And if they abuse that, you're in trouble. Do you get what I'm saying?
And that's how the game goes.
And that's how the game goes.
Because sometimes I feel like people talk from like, and I was doing that with what we were talking, where I'm trying to give you this hypothetical world that in reality doesn't exist. And as much as you want to change their opinion on how we should think and so on, so we can't.
We can't.
So the reality is we could all say, oh well, we should raise our sons this way or raise our daughters this way, but we also have to be aware that the world you think would be a better place for that doesn't exist now. So what do I do now with the child I have at hand that I have to care for? You get?
Same thing that we've always done. Adjust.
And that's it.
We adjust to why I study society, why I study the way I study, is to always stay current on how things are operating in the world. I know that as much as I believe in God and I have religious beliefs, I know that not everybody shares the same belief, 1, 2, and even if they did share the same beliefs, their version of that belief is different. So the societal factor is so important in understanding how to develop a child because you're ultimately going to go into that society. And when you understand that you're going into that society, you've got to be prepared. So one must always adjust. I call it a systems update, like a MacBook.
Yeah. Now, real talk. You don't want to be a lazy parent. You need to know what's going on.
You need to be switched on all the time. You need to recognize that, these things are happening and this is what's going on. And in order for you to not be in that space where people can take advantage of you, you need to be aware of this. But you don't need to be that with a survival mentality. You need to be that with a more open mentality.
Abundance.
Like, I know that you want to take the piss out of me, but that's cool. I'm aware of it. Not, I can never let you take the piss out of me. I can never let you take the piss out of me. No. It's okay for people to take the piss. That's life. What's not okay is that we don't recognize when they're taking the piss. You know what I'm saying? So, again, that's me still telling you to be vulnerable without telling you not to be vulnerable. I'm giving you the right balance. You know what I'm saying? Whereas when you're in survival mode, any form of piss take dealt with, and that's not how wider society operates. The majority of society, that's a minority group of people. And when you appeal to a minority group of people, you then recognize that you can't survive in society, which is why most people from ends can't function in the real world. It's not because they're not capable. It's because your mind is not open. Even the ones that have all the money, they still have the same mentality. You need to stimulate your mind a bit to understand this thing of wider society. Because if you believe your minority group or your minority views, values apply to wider society, you're an idiot.
And you find out the hard way.
And you find out the hard way. Do you get what I'm saying? So I like being vulnerable. I think vulnerable is a strength. Vulnerable. I think vulnerability is a strength. And I exercise my vulnerabilities as much as I can, but still maintaining who I am as a person. Do you get what I'm saying? Because I don't want to be switched off from it. I think when you reach a certain kind of vulnerable place, magic can happen. I believe when you're afraid to be vulnerable, you lose opportunity. When you're afraid to be embarrassed, you miss great things. A lot of people's dreams that have come true have come from a vulnerable place. And they've gone on to become millionaires, stars, well off. All because they dwelled in that vulnerability and used that vulnerability in the way that they needed to now become this figure, this icon. Some people were afraid of the vulnerability, in which case you didn't take time to explore it and you tried to attack it by doing other things to remove the vulnerability. Why would you remove something that in actual fact is so powerful? I personally, I don't think that would be a wise thing to do. But each to their own, really.
That's what I've realized in life is very each to their own.
Yeah, it's always been each to their own.
So I guess on that note, we'll leave it. There's a part 2. This battery's gonna go. I can't take the risk. So we'll get on the next one. But like always, please like, share these videos.
Yeah.
We'll be more consistent. This is coming out this week.
Yeah.
I won't confirm the
Thank
date.
you
but
again.
Thank you again.
I appreciate you. Leave my DMs alone.
I don't want to buy any followers.
I'm not buying any followers. This is a disclaimer.
Because you know what, yeah? I clocked that you gave my number to somebody.
You know what? Lately I've been doing it a lot. Just call this guy.
Yeah, in fact, just say that I'm busy.
I don't want to lie and say I'm busy. I'm just not interested. I don't.
They never called me though.
Because it's long. What's the like? Why are you asking me? I'm not that invested in making people like me. I hope that you like me for who I am and what it is I do, not because I've convinced you to like me. You know, come on, what are you doing here? You know, I'm not. My value doesn't come in the form of people liking me. You know, but I do recognize that if more people like you, it adds value to what it is that you do. So I'm very appreciative for the genuine, let's say, value. I can't appreciate fake value because fake value is like, well, people are not actually locked in. So that's why you have so many followers, but only 10 people commenting.
Yeah. No one's helping out, no one's supporting, no one's sharing.
So you have loads of numbers of the thing, but when it comes to your comments, it's like, what? 30 people comment.
Yeah.
Clearly, not everyone's locked in.
Social media is very much a vanity metric, unfortunately, but it is what it is. Isn't it?
Well, I don't blame them. You know, good luck to you. Some people want fame in the way that they want it, and you know, some of us don't. Just want to do it organically. If fame comes from it, then that's great. If fortune comes from it, then we can turn around and say, "Remember when we started?"
Yeah, trust me.
You know what I'm saying? If
Shout out
nothing else comes
Lucas.
of it, shout out Luke. If nothing comes from it, then at least we can, you know, shed some light, be informative, and show that, you know, we have a bit of depth.
Yeah.
Some of us, anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Hey, what? No more back chat?
Back chat is done, but we're doing one-on-ones now. I don't know what it's called. I did something yesterday or the day before yesterday.
I don't want you to talk too much about it. I saw that on your story.
Yeah, so there's like a one-on-one thing where we go head to head.
Okay.
So yeah.
You look tense in one of those videos still.
Yeah, because sometimes some things be annoying me. some of the responses, like, you'll see for yourself.
Yeah.
You'll see for yourself. I'm
Let
just
me not
like,
get you in trouble, boy.
nah, because Andy,
Yeah.
they'll try and sue me.
That's it then.
Andy and Zoe, shouts to them.
Hold tight, Trans Central.
Come on.
Bless up. Cool.
I love.